then you don't want a sexual partner. You want a vessel to masturbate into or on or with or on top of. There's no partnership in that mindset. Welcome back to Daring Discussions, where we keep it real, raw, and righteous. I am your host, Brittany Broaddus-Smith, the #1 Christian sexologist and your favorite girlfriend. This is the show where we are bridging the gap between the science and scripture of human sexuality. I do not take this show lightly at all. Like, the approach that I take to every single episode is honestly shocking even me. Like, I've been in this game a little bit now since 2016, and there are certain things or certain conversations that I really can just have at a moment's notice. There's certain workshops that I've created that are so ingrained in me that I can just flow and I can just do it. But with this show, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give you the same old. Shout out to Kendra from Social Docs. If you're not following her, she is phenomenal. Brilliant architect, graphic designer. Like, she does Canva like nobody's business. But she said to me when I worked with her for my rebrand, and she redid my website, and she kind of just poured into me and really just was like, listen, this next season is going to require more of you. It's going to require new of you. She kept saying, you cannot put new wine in old wineskin. And so my approach to this podcast, the commitment that I'm making to you all, the viewers, the listeners, the intimacy insiders, is this is new wine, new wineskin, and we're going to run on and see what the egg going to be. All right. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe so that you are first to get the notification whenever we pour in that new wine. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. One of your favorite parts of the episode. And I think that this is, though I love the lesson, Abby, but I love the Ask for Me in My House segment because it's content and questions directly from y'all. And it's really, this show is for y'all. And so being able to answer these questions is really giving you all a buy-in into the show and letting you know that I really care about what y'all got going on. Okay? So Ask for Me in My House, this one is called The Honeymoon Hangover. 27-year-old newlywed. Hi, Brittany. Hey, girl, plan. My husband and I just got back from our honeymoon, and to be honest, the sex wasn't what I expected. I thought it would be magical, but it was awkward and disappointing. He seems fine, but I'm worried this might be a sign of bigger issues down the road. Is this normal? Should I talk to him or just give it time? Well, girlfriend, as for me in my house, I would take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. And these are assumptions, right? Because there's no details about whether y'all had sexual experiences before, whether you had sex with him or he has sex with other people, you had sex with other people, whether y'all both were coming into this as the first time. So I don't have those details. But what I will say is that this is a new season. Whatever that comes with, this is a new season for the two of you all. And honeymoons come with a great deal of unnecessary pressure. A lot of us feel like the honeymoon is supposed to be this big, culminating, explosive, orgasmic, earth-shattering, brain-shaking, boot-knocking, bed-flipping experience, when it really don't give that for a lot of people. And that does not mean that anything is wrong. Y'all have just got off of planning a wedding, worried about because weddings are definitely about everybody else. I know they say it's the bride's day and all of that, but the mindset and the thought process and the answers and the questions that you have to go through when it's leading up to a wedding day, child, it's about the people. And when you get to your honeymoon, a lot of people just want to lay down. Okay? A lot of people just want to just decompress from everything leading up to that day, and the pressure to perform can just take a lot of people out. So I would not go ahead and doom your marriage to bad sex forever just because of one experience. And thinking about the word that you used when you said it was awkward and disappointing, awkward for me says that this may have been your first time, or you've had the two of you may have had very few experiences, which means y'all have a place to grow, which means we got time to practice and get better, which was better than some sex, but more sex, right? And so you have to, no, as for me in my house, no, I'm not going to assume that this means the end of the world. What I am going to do is definitely have a conversation with my husband. I'm going to get his insight on how he felt about the honeymoon experience, and really begin to have the conversation. Like, what do we want our sex life to look like moving forward? You said it was disappointing. What did you expect it was going to be specifically? Because words like, I thought it was going to be good, I thought it was going to be better. You can't really quantify that. You can't hold that accountable. But if you said, I thought it was going to be longer, I thought he was going to touch me softer, I thought there was going to be more foreplay, I thought we were going to try different positions, I thought it wasn't going to hurt as much. Like, those are quantifiable things, those which gives opportunity for actionable solutions, actionable plans, actionable conversations, so that we can shift what it's going to look like moving forward. So you have to consider, again, I'm huge on self-reflection. Sit with yourself for a second to say, okay, I think that this was awkward and disappointing. What did I expect? How did this fall short of my expectations? And then also ask yourself, where did these expectations come from? What is fueling these expectations? Are these expectations in alignment with how I actually think, feel, or believe, or were these expectations handed to me or ingrained into me from a larger society or from other people? And then how do my expectations align with my husband's expectations? Are we on the same page about certain things? The other things that we aren't on the same page about, what can be compromised? What are non-negotiables? What are deal breakers? A lot of these conversations should have been had prior to the altar. But we're here now. So no, we're not going to doom your sex life to be bad forever and always. What I see this as is an opportunity for growth, learning, and more orgasms along the way, as long as both partners are willing to listen, to learn, and to apply the knowledge that they get. That's what makes you a wise lover. We want to be wise lovers, not good lovers. A wise lover is someone who takes information given to them and applies it, because that's what wisdom is. Knowledge, apply. Give me knowledge. Let me apply it. I have a wise lover. Wise lover makes for better orgasms. Wise partners make for better orgasms. So that's what I would say. And again, like I said earlier, there were some assumptions made in this. I'm going to go ahead and assume for the purposes of this episode that this was the first time experience. And if you are a Christian, you are very likely, not guaranteed, but very likely have been impacted by what is known as purity culture. For Black people, purity culture is a more white evangelical experience. Like, the system of purity culture was created in white evangelical spaces. It kind of trickled into Black Christianity, but we experience it more with that, like, holiness is still right, respectability, politics. Like, it's different but similar. Well, all in all, that leads us perfectly into what our conversation for today is going to be, is purity culture myths and the truth of God about it, right? So we want to do, I love a list. Y'all know I love a listicle, love a list, love a top three, love that. And so I shared with you before that I have been guilty of trying to make things too practical, but I'm also an educator. I'm an educator at heart. So bringing things down into top three, into the list, make things more palatable, as long as we all understand that there are deeper, more spiritual implications here. Okay, so today we're going to talk, because there's a bunch of them, but I think I have about 4 myths that we're going to get into today. Okay, let's not waste no time, jump right on. And first and foremost, myth number 1, women are required, men are inspired. Myth number 1, women are required, men are inspired. What does that mean? Purity culture often teaches us that women, and it unintentionally or sometimes intentionally teaches us that women carry the brunt of maintaining purity. When it comes to all of the expectations of purity, chastity, holiness, abstinence, all of modesty, all of those things, women carry the bigger bag. When it comes to sexual purity and, holding until marriage, it is women who are taught that they are worth waiting for, which is to suggest that the man would be willing to wait for them if this woman was good enough, which then suggests that men don't have to wait until they find a woman that is good enough. But I don't know what Bible that you read, but none of my Bible says that. None of my Bible speaks against fornication or sexual immorality from a woman-only standpoint. There is no gender-based restrictions as it relates to sexual purity or chaste living or holiness. But purity culture suggests that women that are worth and value are rooted in our ability to abstain from sex and to present as a holy, hyper feminine commodity that is to be offered as a reward to our partners, which we'll get into a little bit longer. So I say women are required because for your womanness, as a good godly woman, you are required to live this way. Where men are inspired, it is the expectation that men are going to struggle with desire. What men are going to like, it's just the way of the man. Like, we like to say these kind of usually like boys will be boys and men will be men and those type of things to suggest that men have some type of innate, insatiable desire for sex and to lascivious behavior that can only be tamed in the presence of the right woman, which again is not godly. Reality is both men and women have equal responsibility to honor their bodies. We both have equal responsibility to steward our desires and our thoughts. Last episode, we talked about the difference between lust and desire. Men are just as susceptible to being pulled away into isolation and to being and living in enmity with God through lustful behaviors as women do. And when men have just as much a responsibility to overcome and submit those evil idolatrous desires and thoughts to God to pursue holy living. And even when I'm saying this on my mouth, like the word like evil idolatrous desires, like that sounds so harsh. But again, the reality of it is anything that opposes the way and the will of God is sin, and sin is evil. There is no goodness in sin. There is no little sin or big sin. There is sin, right? We know that blasphemy, I thought of blaspheming of the Holy Ghost, like our everyday behaviors, our everyday things that our flesh pulls us to do is evil because it comes from the evil one, which is perpetuated by Satan. And we don't like this kind of talk. Y'all don't like this kind of church. We talk about sin and things like that, but the reality of it is our refusal to have these type of conversations, these type of daring discussions that keeps us in this sin cycle that we want so desperately to break from. But it is women, unfortunately, where their identity and worth, they are in that same sin cycle, but their worth and value as a human, as a woman, is more tied to it than that of men, which again is not godly. Myth number 2, men need sex, which is directly connected to the first one. I'm not going to say where it's from, but I saw a podcast the other day where this person, the guest, was comparing men's need for sex to a need for air, and suggested that he would not cut off his wife's access to air any more than she should cut off his access to sex, which really sent me. Okay. And I want so badly, and I did not watch the full episode because honestly the clip was enough for me, but to suggest that a basic need like air, breathing, water, food, clothing, shelter is in any way comparable to sex just really doesn't make any sense to me, but also, again, is not biblical. You can want sex a whole lot. And trust me, there are many women who want sex a whole lot, even more than their partners. It can be a very high priority. It can be something that is important, so important to you that you, based on your own sexual expectations, that it helps it, you use it to make decisions in partner selection and things like that, which is fine. That's your business. But to say that a man needs it creates this continued, number one, rape culture, because then it can excuse bad behavior, because if he needs it, then he had to go get it, whether she was willing to provide or not. It continues this idea of toxic masculinity that suggests that men are this insatiable, uncontrollable, like deviants, which is also untrue. It's like, so to say men need sex is so reductive. And I think that we fear, because so much of our society paints the picture that women aren't willing to have sex as often, or that women don't desire sex as often, that we've settled with the idea that men need sex to kind of stronghold women in relationships to be sure that they are providing or meeting this very strong desire or high priority of their partner. And I think that's the easy way out. That's a cheap shot to even take. And I think that men, we have not found the hermeneutic, the sexual hermeneutic, if you will, to speak to and be able to express having sex is really important to me. When I had a bad day, I like to unwind with a good orgasm. When I've been sitting in traffic all night, nothing makes me feel better than a back rub and a little, oral pleasure, right? It is okay for you to say that, but we are not in a system. We do not give permission to anybody to speak up for what they want. And so we have to now strong arm people into meeting our needs by meeting our desires, or honoring our desires by convincing the whole world at large that it is a need, and it is not. When we do so, and then further in the same way, we use things like men mean sex to kind of support the idea that sex will keep somebody faithful. Men and women alike, sex has never kept somebody faithful. People do not cheat because of sex. People have sex when they cheat. Not being sexually satisfied can make cheating an easier decision, but it is not, my wife isn't having sex with me, so I went out and got sex from someone else. That's not the motivation. Pride is the motivation. Lust is the motivation. Pain, hurt, rejection are the motivations. Like poor coping skills are the motivation. There are so many other things that motivate people to make a decision to compromise their vows, or even just any whatever relational contract if you're not married. That is not because, you weren't having sex with them. And again, by making it that simple, and that is a reductive approach to a deeper psychological, emotional, and even sometimes spiritual issue. And you cannot put the burden on a partner. I'm not even going to make this gender specific. You can't put the burden on a partner to always and forever, no matter the situation, no matter what they're going through, no matter how bad that they are, no matter how they are feeling in their body, no matter what their health status is, that if I do not put out, I'm going to get cheated on. Imagine that the only way to keep someone faithful is to have sex even when you don't want to. So now it has nothing to do with character. Now it has nothing to do with commitment to God's will. Now it has nothing to do with the fruit of the Spirit. Now it just, not for even outside of God, it just being a good person, being a person of your word. It's because you ain't get what you want. Like, how juvenile, again, not making this gender specific, how juvenile is it that you ain't gonna give me what I want, so I'm gonna go get it from somewhere else? What does that sound like? The episode we just talked about before, right? Lust. It's all about you. Regardless of what that's gonna make your partner feel like, regardless of the aftermath, regardless of the person, of the interest and expectations that will come from the person that you're going to slide with, right? Regardless of that, As long as you get what you need, you good, right? That don't have nothing to do with sex. That's a character issue. That's a heart issue. So purity culture suggesting that in the same people that they tell to don't think about sex, don't look at sex, don't consider sex, be pure, be holy, be chaste, be ignorant, wants them immediately on their wedding night, flip the switch. You better have so much sex and be so good at it if you want to have a faithful partner. Make that make sense for me. All right. Myth number 3, abstaining guarantees great sex in marriage. And this has a 3A. The A clause of the scripture is you got to try it before you buy it, or like you got to have sex before you, people have tried to like combat this myth with like, oh, I got to have sex. Even believers, I got to have sex before I get married because I need to know what I'm getting myself into. Neither of them guarantee great sex in marriage. You know what guarantees great sex in marriage? Being a good partner, exercising the fruit of the spirit in the bedroom, being a wise lover, being patient, being kind, just right, listening, applying the information that you receive, trying new things. You know what else makes for a good marriage? Failing, messing up, falling off the bed, knocking the lube over, trying that position and then it slips out. Yeah, well, we get that. That's like trying a position and hating it so that you know not to do that anymore, right? Talking about the sex after you've had it, talking about the sex before you've had it, having conversation even in your dating phase about your sexual expectations. That's what sets you up for good sex or great sex in your marriage, or what I particularly call a culture of sexual excellence. Humility is what makes for good sex, right? You just sitting in abstinence, particularly in the way that it is taught, is not going to guarantee you great sex in marriage. What that says is that God owes you something and you're expecting him to reward you with this orgasmic experience. And that's not to suggest that it won't happen, but your abstinence is not in exchange for great sex in your marriage. Your abstinence is in exchange for well done. This one here, child. Your abstinence is obedient, right? And that's I'll get into that more in the myth 4. But the thing is that that's how, again, it's the strong arm. We are so ineffectual in our discipleship, so ineffectual in our approach to getting people to not just do the things of God, but to have a heart that bends towards the things of God, a heart submitted and postured to his will and his way, a heart that delights in doing the things of God, that we have settled with threats and tricks and complete reformulations of identities because we don't know how to get people. We don't know how to witness. We don't know how to disciple. We don't do it well. God is a gentleman. Scripture says he knocks at the door before he comes in. He wants you to want to be here. Yes, that's why we have free will. He don't want to strong arm you into doing this thing. He wants you to do it with exceeding joy. Right? And so when we think about abstinence guaranteeing great sex, it sits in opposition of the fact that sexual compatibility is created. It's not found. It requires good communication. It requires a mutual effort. It requires learning. It requires humility. It requires joint submission. It requires some yeses. It requires some no's. And it requires you to have a good attitude about it. Even when you hear a no, it requires a safe place for curiosity to land. It requires a safe place for boundaries to exist and be enforced. That's what creates a culture of sexual excellence. You done kept penises and vaginas as far away from you as the East is from the West. All of that means is that you've cut penises and vaginas from you as far as the East is for the West. That is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or form on your wedding night. And that is not going to fill your sexual resume in no way, shape, or in the future if you don't work at it. And in the same way, baby, you can have more listings on your sexual resume than words in the dictionary, and that still don't mean you're gonna have good sex in marriage. Because your sexual resume only makes you an expert in the partners that you've had before. And that's what we don't want to work. We don't want to work. We are so afraid of, we think that because I heard somebody say that I don't like the idea that marriage is work. Why not? Everything is work. Salvation is work. Sanctification, well, salvation is by grace, but sanctification is work. Every day we have to pick up our cross. Scripture said, in this life you will have trouble, you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. We already know that we're gonna have to work with some things. It's not just gonna happen by osmosis, but that's what we want. We want it to just be given to us, and that's what the enemy tells us is we just have to. It's just going to be given to us, and like we talked about in the last episode, that's what lust tells us is that people are here for your enjoyment and your fulfillment. That's what porn teaches is that you are the star. Everybody is here to make sure you leave fully satiated and depleted of all bodily fluids and energy. But where is that life at? Where is that world at? And then if the roles were reversed and you were used in that way, it wouldn't feel good. When you think about sex in this way and realize that it's just going to be guaranteed to you and you ain't going to have to work at it, then you don't want a sexual partner. You want a vessel to masturbate into or on top of. There's no partnership in that mindset. And I don't want to sound like I feel like I'm being a little bit harsh, and I'm not meaning to sound like I'm yelling at nobody. But the reality of it is we have to get back to relationships. Everything that we see in the world, and we have mirrored the world's vision of relationship by way of transaction. We were created in community, for community, by a community. God said, let us make man in our image. So the relational, equitable partnerships is really in the core of our very foundation, and we move away from that every single day. We have lost our stamina for the things of God. And Brady's like, what that got to do with abstinence guarantee? Says, I don't know, honestly. But I told y'all at the beginning that we will let the Holy Spirit do what it's going to do. So the reality of it is that what it takes to be a great lover, a great partner, a wise lover, and have good sex is selflessness. Now, this selflessness is not meaning you put yourself, like your pleasure doesn't matter. Because that's, we got in this whole idea, I'm a pleaser, right? Like, that's not the flex that y'all think it is. Like, it's about equity. It's about partnership. So you show up fully prepared and willing to share with your partner what words, what you like, what you don't like. And in the same way, fully prepared to listen to what your partner has to offer. And then sexual excellence looks like this beautiful dance of all of these wants and interests and expectations and accommodations in some instances, right? Because some of us need a little bit more accommodating when it comes to, sex. Y'all now to my leaders, pastor lady, y'all turn this off. Y'all don't listen right here. But if you have said, you need a little help just to kickstart that erection, that's an accommodation. You need a little help to kickstart the lubrication, that's an accommodation. You need a couple extra pillows for your back, that's an accommodation. You need your refractory period between round 1 and round 2 lasts a little bit longer, that's an accommodation. And it's okay. Lube ain't never hurt nobody. Foreplay is designed for that purpose. Sexologist Shamara said all the time, would you put a frozen pizza in the cold oven? No, you have to warm that thing up. You got to give it a time. You got to let it marinate. You got to tenderize it. Don't ain't be juicier and fall off the bone more when it's wet. Tenderize. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. But see, that's the thing where people say, oh, that take too much work. Why are y'all so afraid of work? And again, this is not gender specific. I'm not beating up on nobody what I'm saying. You got to get back to, we focus so much on the wrong things that we lose our energy to focus and to pour into and put effort into the right thing. And so that's let's just, because we know sometimes it may be semantics, but because I know y'all don't like the word, let's not say work. It takes effort. You got to put some energy behind it. You got to put your back into some things. No pun intended. Or is it? This is dairy discussion. I don't know. Last but not least, myth number 4, you are, and this is again for women, but I'm gonna make it gender all inclusive. Shout out to Anna Turner, who I got this from. You're supposed to save yourself for your husband. She says, stop saving yourself for your husband. And I 100% agree and want to add, stop saving yourself for your wife. Right? Because you aren't supposed to, we aren't saving ourselves for anybody but the Lord. Right? Purity culture often frames abstinence as a transaction. You do this, you'll get this. Like, and now you're bartering your body and entering into this quid pro quo relationship with God. So because I abstain, I'm going to be rewarded with this. But the word says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Right? The word also says he will withhold no good thing for those who walk upright. But the good thing in no way doesn't say he will withhold no marriage. My phone did that, but that's all right. We will withhold no marriage from those who walk upright. He will withhold no good sex from those that walk upright. He will withhold no baby for those who walk upright. It doesn't say that. Now, sometimes it manifests as that. But to suggest that this hook, line, and sinker, I'm going to do this so that I can get this, that's not, first of all, it's not biblical, but also it's not in alignment with what abstinence was designed for. Abstinence is a heart postured to serve God in thought, word, and deed. It's a heart posture to surrender my desires, even the God-given ones, to God in thought, word, and deed. It's a heart that says, I had my body and my arousal zones and my hormones and certain points in my life are running amok. Yet I give this to you, Lord. Yet I know that I can't do this on my own. I need you to help me through until the appointed time when I get to bask in the glory of your gift. That is the covenant of marriage and the sex that is contained within. Up until then, I am going to submit to you. And that is for men, that is for women, that is for everybody who professes to be a child of the King. That is for everybody who admitted, believed, and confessed that they are a sinner, that Jesus died on the cross for their sin, that 3 days later got up from the grave. And I feel like I said this last time, and I feel like I might have to say this every single time. Snatch the keys with death, hell, to the grave, and one day we'll be coming back again so that we can live in eternity for him. If you are in the called out of the called out, if you are in the for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. If you believe that you will not perish but have everlasting life, then this is for you. And you are abstaining for him. And to think that because then what happens is you 20, okay, I'm here holding on. That's fine, I'm only 20. You come 30 now, okay? 30 is the new 20. We out here, right? I'm starting businesses, LLC getting, traveling. And now you're 40 and still ain't been rubbed on yet. 50 and still ain't been. And you ain't got the Paul anointing because you're yearning in your Netherlands, right? But it's like, God, where is what you promised me? I've been obedient. I've held on. Where is my stuff? You owe me. But then a lot of the times we get disappointed with God because the promises that we are waiting on ain't in here. The voices that we are listening to ain't from there. So your disappointment is misplaced. You are projecting onto him when he said, who ain't said that? Now, that is not to suggest that desiring a marriage is a problem. Not a problem, because one day I'm going to get my beauty for ashes. Hallelujah. Being horny, absolutely not a problem. Wanting a family, not a problem. Feeling like this is, after you've waited a while, like, my God, what is going on? Having questions for God, not a problem. But that is very different from questioning God because your thoughts or your expectations and your timeline seems to be falling short of what you expected when you never sought him in the creation of that timeline to begin with, or someone else fed you a timeline that you believed into. So when we are abstaining, we're doing it for Christ's sake, right? That's the truth of that. When we are, let me try to go in order. Let me start from the top. It's not, women are required and men inspired? Absolutely not. Everybody, lottie-dottie, everybody. Abstinence, chastity, case living, purity for everybody. The biblical purity is for everybody. Men do not need sex. Nobody's going to die. And that's just, and I ain't going to say too much more behind that. Men do not need sex. Yeah. And what was missing number 3? Oh, there we go. Abstinence is going to guarantee you great sex in your marriage. Nah, baby, you got to put a little effort into that thing. Sexual compatibility is created, not found. Now, y'all might kick in the door, waving the 224, and it'd be fireworks and gumdrops. It might be the case, but if it ain't the case, it's not the end of the world. And then last but not least, we are doing this thing, the whole thing, the abstinence, the purity of thought, mind, and deed, the commitment to doing his will, the admittance that we are weak and we need our Father. We are doing it for him. And if nothing ever comes from it but a closer walk with him, hallelujah, anyhow. I know it don't feel good, but that is what spiritual maturity look like. That even in the face of your desires, even in the face of your wants, even in the face of your hopes and dreams and wishes, if all I ever had is all I'll ever have, you're still good and you're still God. I am Brittany Broaddus-Smith, the #1 Christian sexologist and your favorite girlfriend. And this has been Daring Discussions, Real Righteous Sex Talk. Make sure if this has resonated with you, if this could resonate with someone else, or if you flat out disagree with me, because, love also allows for correction and constructive critique. Because remember, if you are intimacy insider, I always have time. Even when I don't have time, I have time. But if you disagree with me, let's talk about it in the comments. DM me, email me. Again, if you want to be your story included or Ask For Me in My House, email me at admin@intimacyfirm.com. Subject line, Ask For Me in My House. Like, share, and subscribe to this video. Favorite it on whatever platform that you listen to your podcast. And remember that every episode for me is for you to learn a little bit more about yourself and draw a little bit closer to Jesus. And if that happens for even just one person, then we're done. We can't do. See you next week.